How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're sending off, hopefully, Kuf Yud Dalet. I think that's what we're up to. Hope I didn't get that wrong. I think we're up to Kuf Yud Dalet of Masechta BavaKama. Friends. Yo, friends. Do. Okie dokie. Ba-da-ba-da-da-da. Alright, well, alright, well, we're talking about like BavaKama stuff, Moichsin, and stuff like that, Ganaf, Goslin, Yeush, like that kind of stuff. Alright, let's do it. Alright, we're going to start on Daf Kuf Yud Dalet. At the Mishnah, about 15 lines into the Amud, Natnu Mochsin es Chamor v'nosnu Chomer Acher. Alright, so I guess the tax people, they took his donkey and they gave him a different donkey. I don't know why they did that, but alright. Natnu listim es Ksusov v'nosnu lo Ksus Acheres. The bandits, the robbers, they took his garment and they gave him a different garment. Okay. Hare Elu, did I skip anything? I don't think so. Hare Elu Shalo Mipnei Sha'abayim Misyashin Meir. You see, you didn't even know that I was yawning. What time is it? I don't think it's too late. What time? It's 5:30? Not that late, you know. What time is it? 5:30? What was I doing today? Stuff. Yeah, I was doing stuff for most of the day. Yeah, alright. Okay. Oh gosh. I'm a little thrown off because there's like a situation with the house that I might have to. I'm kind of hoping that I don't have to deal with. It's one of those house situations that comes up from time to time. I gotta sneeze 1 second. One of these kind of like maintenance issues. I'm hoping it's not going to be an issue because it could be a real pain to fix. All right. Anyway, so Elu Shalom Pnesha Bailam Siashin Men. Because the Bailam are Messiashin Men, right? Okay, so meaning if a tax man or a bandit takes something from you, right? So the assumption, okay, so we're talking about right. So the tax guy or the thief guy takes something from you and like for some reason gives you somebody else's. So it's yours because whoever they took it from probably doesn't expect to get it back. So there's Yeush. Okay. I think maybe the assumption is that Yeush Kedi Kani. Oh wait, okay, so that's better. Okay, great. So they were kone with Yeush because the original person gave up hope, and now they're getting it. So it's Yeush plus Shinu Rishus, so it's theirs. Fine. So it's yours. Hamatzil min hanoher, if you save epis from a river, omin agayis, or from like soldiers, I think, omin alistin, or from bandits. All right. Im nisyaishu abaylim are'elu shalom. If the owners gave up hope, if there was Yeush, so then it belongs to you. It's yours. V'chein nachil shel dvarim, and similarly what's a nachil shel dvarim? Like a thing of bees, like a thing of bees. A bee. What's a thing of bees called? Like a swarm? Is that what it is? It's like a swarm of bees. Should I look it up? Yeah, 1 second. I should probably look it up. Well, I totally nailed that. Swarm of bees. Okay, Misashu Arielu Shalo. Alright. If like the owner of the swarm of bees gave up hope of getting them back, so then you can keep them. Amar Yochanan ben Broka, says Yochanan ben Broka, Ne'menes Isha Okoin Lomi Mikanyotso Nechil Ze. An Isha or a Koin are believed to say that the swarm of bees came out from this location. If your swarm of bees got lost, so you can walk onto your friend's field in order to save your swarm of bees. And if you damaged your friend's field in the process, so you have to pay for the damages that you damaged. But do not chop off his branch, if your swarm of bees is like, hanging and shooting the breeze on your friend's trees, if your swarm of bees is shooting the breeze on your friend's trees, So the Yikot is Socho. Oh geez. All right. Well, I should probably quit while I'm still somewhat ahead. All right. So don't chop off the the branch in order to get back your swarm. Rabbi Yishmael ben Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka Omer Afkotes v'nosin esadam. Rabbi Yishmael ben Rabbi Yochanan ben Broka says you can chop off the branch and pay the value of it to your friend. Tana, said im notol machzir lebailim hari shonim. If you, right, okay, right. So now, in the scenario of like the tax man, right? So we said that the tax man, what do we say? He took your donkey and then gave you somebody else's. So im notal, if you accepted the donkey from the tax man, so yachzir lebailim, you should give it back to the original owner, harishonim, the original owner, because kasavar yeush kedi lo kani, because this Tana is assuming that yeush kedi lo kani, that yeush alone is not enough to make a kinyan, which means that the tax man, even though there was yeush on the side, on the behalf of the person who it was taken from, so even though he was miyayesh, but yeush kedi lo kani, which means that so long as the tax man has it, it doesn't belong to the tax man, because even though there's yeush kedi lo kani, yeush alone is not enough. Which means that then when he gives it to you, sure, in your possession, I think this is the point, sure, in your possession, there's yeush plus shinui rishus, so technically it's yours now, but you got it from somebody who was a thief, be'etzim. So it didn't belong to him. And therefore, I think the point is that sure, it might belong to you now because the taxman gave it to you, and now there's yeush and shinu rishus, but still, I mean, you didn't, it was given to you by somebody who was unauthorized to have it. Those who say, look, if you want to be a good guy, right, what does Rashi say? He's a chosid. He's a particularly righteous fellow. So if you would return it to the original fellow, right? So in balachzer, if you plan to return it, yachzor levalim rishonim, so return it to the original owner. My time I'll come yeush kedikani, because according to this interpretation, yeush alone would be koner, yeush alone would be kone, and therefore, when the taxman has it, since the original guy was miyayish, so it belongs to the taxman, and when the taxman then gives it to you, so if it's his, he's authorized to give it to you. So it didn't come into your hands in an usher way. So yeush kedi kani, but miu, where am I? Okay, now miu, however, im omar efshi b'momen she'eno shali machzir levalim harishonim. Now, if I guess, meaning even though yeush kedi, I think this is the point, that even though yeush kedi is kani, nonetheless, im omar, if he says efshi b'momen she'eno shali, that look, I can't deal with something that isn't mine, machzir levalim rishenim, so he gives it back to the original owner, even though he didn't need to. I think that's how to read it. Let me just make sure. I think I read it right. Why not? What do you guys think? Do you think it sounded like it made sense? I think it made sense. So we say that it belongs to you because, right, meaning so let's say you are Shimon, okay? So the tax man took a donkey from Reuven and gave it to Shimon, to you, Shimon. So he said, so it belongs to Shimon because Reuven would have given up hope. Ravashi says, Lo shanu ela listim ovid kirchovim. So, okay. Okay, so I believe what this is saying, Lo shanu ela listim ovid kirchovim, that if Reuven, meaning if the bandit, so forget about the tax man, if we talk about the bandit who took his garment, So if the bandit was an Ovid Kechovim, and he took it from Ruvain, and now he's giving it to Shimon, so then we say that there would be Yeush on behalf of Ruvain. Aval listim Yisrael, but if it was Moshe the Ganif, if it was a Jewish listim, a Jewish bandit, so then there would not be Yeush. We would not assume that there's Yeush, because Savr L'Mocher Nakitna Le Bedina. If it's Moshe the Ganif, Ruvain's gonna say, hey, what's the deal? I'm taking Moshe the Ganif to court. So therefore there wouldn't actually be Yeush. Maskefler of Yosef Asakasha Adra Be'ipcha Mistavro. Or I would say Punkt Verkehrt. Akum, that when it comes to in Ovid Kechovim, the Daine Begite Loy Miya'ish. Yisrael Kevon the Amri Meimer Miya'ish. If I understand this correctly, by the Jewish courts, they betzim give you a slap on the wrist, but by the Oivdei Kechovim courts over there, it's serious business. They're going to cut off your hand. Who knows what but they don't mess around in those courts. So therefore, I'll say Punkt Verkehrt. If it's an Ovid Kechovim who steals, you bet I'm going to court. I'm not giving up hope. I'm going to court, and that guy is going to pay, because if he doesn't, he knows what's coming to him. So therefore, he knows that right there. He says, I'm not giving up hope. I'm going to court, and I'm going to make sure that this guy pays me back. Whereas by Moshe the Ganif, I guess because I don't know. I guess that because the stakes are like not as high, therefore I guess it's not as obvious that you'll get your money back or something, and therefore like he'll just be like, I'm never going to get this back, something like that. What does Rashi say? I'm a maimer. Just go and give it back. But they don't really, they don't beat the guy up. So therefore, I guess that there's, I don't know. I guess in a sense there's like less kind of. It seems. I guess it's. How about this? It seems more like a headache, right? Meaning by the Ovid Kechovim, you go to the court over there and you say that this Shmendrik stole from me. They're going to beat him up until he gives it back. So okay, it's pretty efficient. I go to court, they beat him up, they give me back my thing. The Jewish courts, you go, they say, okay, go, pay him back. You come back a month later, he still hasn't paid back. So he's like, forget about it. So okay, fine. I think maybe that's shot. So if Yosef Betzim says like Punkt Verkehrt, right? Meaning by an Ovid Kechovim, I would say that he would not be Miyayish, and by a Yid, I will say forget about it, and he's going to be Miyayish. So Elo Yitmar Aseifa Itmar. Rather, if this Yeush thing is being said, it's on the Seifa Amatzil Mina Akum. Umina listim, a fellow who steals from an akum or from a listim. Although what was that? Was that the guys? Alright. So if there is Yeush on behalf of if the Bailim were Miyayish, so in Stoma lo. So if there was Yeush, so then we can assume that there's Yeush. But by default, we wouldn't assume that there was Yeush. L'shanu ela akum. That's dafka by Akum there would not by default be Yeush Mishum the Dain and Begite, because they have these more forceful judging methods. Avalistim Yisrael came the Ami Meimer Miyayish, but by Moshe the Ganif, since in the Jewish courts they're like dragging their feet a little, they're not as efficient, so therefore there by default he would be miyayish, because it's too much of a headache to go to court. Tanan awesome. We learn over there Oiris shel balabayis, the hides of a balabayis machshove metamason. They become tummy b'machshove. Who could tell me what this means? I believe that we've seen it before. That be'etzem, if you have a balabayis who a balabos, a fellow who is a regular guy, who is tanning his hide, and he's doing it for himself, right? So be'etzem, whenever he decides that the hide is good enough for him, so it's done. When he says, okay, it's done. If he's planning to make shoes with it or whatever it is, so he says, okay, fine, I have my leather that I need for my shoes, it's done. Other people might want to make it into a couch or whatever it is, like keep on working it, whatever it might be. As far as he's concerned, it's done. So then that makes it's ready, it's a kli, and it's mukhshel l'kabel tumah. V'shel avdon, however, of a tanner, ein machshove mitamason. Well then, when the tanner decides, okay, I'm done, what that means is that I'm ready to sell it, but then you'll sell it to somebody else, and then they can decide what they want to do with it. So therefore, the tanner deciding that it's done, it's kind of with the knowledge that, but likely somebody else is going to do something else with it. That ultimately there's going to be more work done to it in the future, so it's not considered complete, and therefore it's not going to be mekabel. It's not mukhshel l'kabel tumah. Shel gazlin ein machshav mitamasan. Now here is where things get relevant to us. A gazlin, a fellow is a gazlin as opposed to a ganif, right? A gazlin, somebody who steals in the open, whereas a ganif, somebody who steals in secret. I think that's the basic distinction. So shel gazlin. So if a guy steals a hide or whatever, and I guess he decides that he's done with it, done working with it. Maybe he steals the hide and he's processing it and he decides it's done. Ein machshav mitamasan. So his machshav is irrelevant because there's no yayush. It doesn't belong to him. And so as long as there's no yayush, so I guess even if there's like a shinu maisa or whatever it is, if there's no yayush, it doesn't belong to him. So his machshav is irrelevant. V'shal ganif machshav mitamasan. But a ganif, on the other hand, so then there's yayush, and therefore his machshava is relevant. Reb Shimon Omer chiluf hadvarim. Reb Shimon says fakert shel gazlon machshav mitamasan. That dafka by a gazlin, his machshava it will belong to him, and his machshava will be relevant. Shel ganif ein machshav mitamasan, but by a ganif there's no yayush, and therefore his machshava will be irrelevant because it's not shaykh to him. Because according to Reb Shimon, by a ganif there was no yayush by them. Okay. Omar Ula, okay, fine. So Omar Ula, machlokes bistam. So it says Ula that the machlokes is stam. If we don't know if the victim had given up hope or not, if there was yayush or not, and therefore we say, okay, according to Chacham, we can assume by a gazlan no, by a ganif yes. According to Reb Shimon fakert, by a gazlan yes, by a ganif no. But if we heard the guy say, I'm giving up hope, everybody would agree that there would be yayush and there would be a kin. If you heard him explicitly say that he was giving up hope, so then there would be, then there's yayush. So Rashi Davka says yayush kidi kani, which is interesting. It sounds like he's saying that he's assuming that everybody here would agree that if there is yayush, then it would be yayush kidi kani. Interesting. Okay, fine. Okay, so Ula says that this machlokas is dafka when we're not sure if there's yayush or not. So it depends if he was a ganif or a gazlan. But if we hear him say, okay, I'm giving up hope of ever getting it back, so then regardless of if he's a ganif or a gazlan, then there's yayush. Rabba Amar says, Rabba biyadua nami machlekes. Rabba says that actually the machlokas is also biyadua, is also when you hear him say that he's giving up hope, still, if it's according to Chacham, if it's a gazlan, he still hopes that he's going to get it back. Okay, fine. Amalei Abaye, the Rabba says Abaye to Rabba lo tiflug ole to Ula. Wait, Abaye says to Rabba, don't argue with Ula. Ditnan b'masnisin kavose. Because in the Mishnah that we just quoted with the hides of the Balabayas, etc., the Fishalonis Yaishu Habailim, that Davka Reb Shimon says that by a ganif, ein machshava mitamason, because there's no yeyush. Taima dulonis Yaishu Habailim. The reason why Reb Shimon is saying that by a ganif there's no yeush is because it says because the owners did not give up hope. implying Aval Nisyaishu Abaylim, but if we know that they gave up hope, Harelu Shelo, then they would belong to him, to the Ganif. So it sounds like what Ula is saying, that if we know that there was Yeush, then there was Yeush. So Rabbi responds to Abaye, Onad lefisha ein Yeush libailim masninon lo. So Rabbi says, no, but that we teach that it's saying that lefisha ein Yeush libailim, because the bailim would not be giving up hope by a ganif no matter what. Tanan, we learned in our Mishnah, Notlu mochsin chamoro chule. So our Mishnah had said, right? So what did our Mishnah say? So Notlu mochsin es chamoro, right? That the mochsin took his chomer, v'noslu chomer acher, gave him a different chomer. Notlu listim es ksuso, v'noslu ksus acher. Harei l'shalom p'nei shabbat l'misar shemein. So our Mishnah is talking about a moches. A moches, as Rashi points out, is like is considered a gazlan, and a listim is considered like a ganif. And we're saying that both by the listim and by the ganif, that both by the moches and by the listim, i.e., both by a gazlan and by a ganif, we said mipnei shabbat l'misar shemeim, that there's yeush, both by a gazlan and by a ganif. So, Mani, who is the author of our Mishnah? Irabonon. If we're saying the rabbis, well then, Kasha Gazlin. Well, I don't understand. The rabbis say that by a Gazlin, there's no Yeush. Reb Shimon Kasha Ganif. And if we're saying that it's Reb Shimon says that by a Ganif, there's no Yeush. So, Bishlome Le'ule Di'am Bi'adu Akoni. So I understand according to Ula, who says that, well, so long as we heard them be miyaesh, so then there's yeush. So we could say, okay, our Mishnah is talking about that it was after that we heard him be miyaesh, and therefore whether it's a ganif, whether it's a gazlin, so there would be yeush. Where am I? So So you could say that our Mishnah is talking about when you heard him be miyaesh, you know that he was miyaesh, so then everyone would agree, whether it's a ganif, whether it's a gazlin, so then there would be Yeush. But according to Rabbah, who says that even when you heard him say that he was Miyayish, still it's a machlokas, still, by a Gazlin, according to the Rabbanon, he plans to get it back. And by a Ganif, according to Reb Shimon. So Hamani, so then who is the author of our Mishnah, who says that both by a Ganif and by a Gazlin there's Yeush? Lo Rabbanon, lo Reb Shimon. It's like neither the rabbis, nor like Reb Shimon, right? Because the rabbis would say that by a gazlan there's no yeush, and Reb Shimon would say that by a ganif there's no yeush. So belistim mizuyin Reb Shimon he. So we could say, well, no, it's actually Reb Shimon. So Reb Shimon says that by a gazlan there would be yeush. Okay, so the Mishnah says that by a gazlan, by moches there's yeush. And in terms of the listim, which is considered a ganif, if it's a listim mizuyin, if it was an armed robber, well then there's going to be meaning. So when it says listim, it's not talking about a ganif, it's talking about a listim mizuyin, an armed robber who confronts you. It says the Gemara though, ihachi that's kesanu gazim. There wouldn't be a gazlan. A ganif is in stealth. A listim mizuyin is not in stealth. He's attacking you. Wouldn't that be a gazlan? Tregav negazim. We say, well, there's two types of gazlan. There's like the regular stealer guy, and then there's the armed stealer guy. And we're saying that in both cases there would be yeush. Toshma Kamanir, Haganif ve'agazlin ve'anos hekedeshon hekdish v'chumoson chuma ma'isroson ma'isr. So by a ganif, by a gazlon, by an anos, what's an anos? Sounds like maybe like a mobster or something that, not a nice guy. Hekdesh and hekdish, the hekdish is hekdish. V'chumos and chuma, the chuma is chuma. Masros and meiser, the meiser is meiser. Money, who's that like? Irabonon kasha gazlan. Well, if it's the rabbis, well then we have a problem with the gazlan, because we're saying that, right, the hektish is hektish, it belongs to them, they can be maktishit, right? But the rabbis would say that by gazlan there's no yeush. Reb Shimon kasha ganif. If it's Reb Shimon, what about the ganif? Because Reb Shimon says that there's no Yeush by a Ganif. So I understand, according to Ula, who says that Biadua Kani, that if we know that there was Yeush, so then there's Yeush. So then Ochanami, Biadua V'Divra Koli. So it's talking about where they know that he was Miyash, and everyone would agree that there's Yeush, and if we assume that Yeush K'di Kani, so it belongs to him, he can be Makdish it. But according to Rabbi, who says that even when you hear him say that he's Miyash, it's still a Machlokas. So then Harmoni. Then who's the author of this, Mishnah? Brisa? Something? Where am I? Lo Rabbanon, lo Reb Shimon. It's like neither the Rabbanon, nor like Reb Shimon. Because it's saying that both by a Ganif and by a Gazlan there's Yeush. We're saying that Reb Shimon, we're saying it's Reb Shimon. And by a Gazlan, so there would be Yeush. And when we talk about listim a Gazlan, a Ganif, we're talking about listim mizuyin. Yochi anu Gazlan. For a listim mizuyin, then is a Gazlan. Tregabne Gazlan. Okay, there's two types of Gazlan that they're teaching about. Iba Yisem, alternatively. Hamasnisa Rebbe he. The author of this Mishnah is, or this Brisa is Rebbe. The Tana is one of the Brisa. Rebbe Omer says Rebbe Ganif ki Gazlin v'kamlin ki Gazlin Reb Shimon. That Rebbe says that a Ganif is like a Gazlan, is the same din as a Gazlan, and we establish, as we're going to see in a second, that when Rebbe says that, he's talking about like the Gazlan of Reb Shimon. That Reb Shimon says that by a Gazlan there's Yeush, and guess what? By a Ganif Oichet there's Yeush. So therefore, we can say that the author of that price is Take Rebbe. Gufe, we just said, Rebbe Omer Oni Ganif ki Gazlan. That Rebbe says that a Ganif is like a Gazlan. They ask, ki Gazlan de Rabbanon Kamar v'lo Kani, or Dimu ki Gazlan de Reb Shimon Kamar v'Kani. So when Rebbe says this, right, meaning we had just said that Rebbe says that a Ganif is like the Gazlan of Reb Shimon. But now we're going to actually figure out how we know that. So the kasha is, when Rebbe says that a Ganif is like a Gazlan, are we saying like the Gazlan of the Rabbanon, in which case there's no Yeush, or is it the Gazlan of Reb Shimon, in which case there is Yeush? So again, Gufa, Rebbe Omer Oni Ganif ki Gazlan. Ibaylu ki Gazlan de Rabbanon ka V'lo Kani is like the Gazlan of the rabbis, and there's no Yeush and there's no Kinyan. Or Dilma, or perhaps the Gazlan of Reb Shimon Ka'amar, maybe it's the Gazlan of Reb Shimon V'Kani, and there is Yeush and there is a Kinyan. Tashma coming here. Notlu Mochsin Chamoro V'Chulei. Well, our Mishnah had said that if the Moichsin take his Chomer, and we say that there is Yeush, so money. So who would be the author of our Mishnah? Irabbanon Kasha Gazlan. If it's the rabbis, well, we have a problem because the Mochis is a Gazlan, and we're saying that there's Yeush, but the rabbis say that by Gazlan there's no Yeush. Reb Shimon, if it's Reb Shimon Kasha Ganif. So there's a problem because the Mishnah says that by a Ganif, by the listim. What time is it? Okay. That by the listim, is somebody outside? Maybe. How did I hear that? I have my noise cancelling headphones. I'll go check after. Where am I? And if it's Reb Shimon, so Reb Shimon had said that a Ganif, there's no Yeush, and our Mishnah is saying that by a Ganif, there is, that by listim there is Yeush. So if you say that Rebbe is saying like the Gazlan of Reb Shimon, V'Kani, and therefore there is a Kinyan. So Be'etzem, if he holds like Reb Shimon, then by a Gazlan there's a Kinyan. By a Ganif, the Ganif is like the Gazlan. So by a Ganif Oichid there's a Kinyan. So how money? Who's the author of our Mishnah? Rebbe. It's Rebbe. Shumachi Kani. And that is why we say in both cases that there is a Kinyan, that there's Yeush. But if you say that Rebbe is saying that a Ganif is like a Gazlan like the rabbis, but the rabbis say that by a Gazlan there's no Yeush, then we mean that both by a Ganif and by a Gazlan there's no Yeush, but the Mishnah says that there is Yeush by both. V'lo koni amani lo Rebbe v'lo Reb Shimon v'lo Rabbanan. Then the Mishnah would be like neither Rebbe nor like Reb Shimon nor like the rabbis. So we could say that, well, it's not necessarily like Rebbe. You could say that Tzachah b'mayaskina b'listim b'zuyin v'Reb Shimoni. We could say that it's Reb Shimon, and that there's Yerush by a Gazlon. And when we talk about the listim, we're talking about listim mezuyin, and therefore there's Yerush there as well. Yochi anu Gazlon, but listim mezuyin is betzim Gazlon, treg avne Gazlon. There's two types of Gazlon. Toshma, come in here. Haganif ve'agazlon ve'anos. Hekdesh and Hekdesh, Vitrumos and Trume, Maiser and Maiser money. Who's the author of this? Braise. Irabonon, if it's the rabbis, Kasha Gazlin. Well, then why by a Gazlin there wouldn't be Yehush? According to the rabbis, Reb Shimon, if we're talking about Reb Shimon, Kasha Ganif. Well, by Reb Shimon there would be no Yehush by a Ganif. Yomad Bishlomer, Ki Gazlin de Reb Shimon, Ka'omar. So I understand if you say that Rebbe is saying that the Ganif is like a Gazlan of Reb Shimon, Mishumochi Koni. So then that is why we say that there's a kinyan both by the Ganif and by the Gazlan, because he said that it's Rebbe, and he's saying that both by a Ganif and by a Gazlan there's a kinyan. There's Yehush. Ali Omad Ganif ki Gazlan de Rabbanan. If you say that the Ganif is like the Gazlan de Rabbanan, well then there's no Yehush, neither by a Ganif nor by a Gazlan. So no money. So then, who's the author of this brayse? But listim mezuyin. Well, you could say it's talking about listim mezuyin v'Reb Shimoni. Yochi anu Gazlan, but then the listim mezuyin is betzim a Gazlan. Treg avne Gazlan. There's two types of Gazlan. I guess there's armed Gazlan and non-armed Gazlan. Amalei Ravashi the Rabba says Ravashi to Rabba Toshma. Come in here. Demasne Rebbe Reb Shimon Bray. That Rebbe taught to his son Reb Shimon, Lo dover sheish bo achrayis mamish. When our Mishnah says that if it's something that has achrayis, so then he has to pay it back. It doesn't necessarily mean property. Ela afilu pari v'chorish b'chomer mechamer achrav. Even if it's a cow, right? His father had stolen a cow and then he died, and the cow was a cow that I think we're saying that the victim would kind of plow with, or a donkey that you would kind of walk with, right, that it's recognizable. So then the children would have to return it out of the honor of their father. So they have to return it out of the honor of their father. But if not for the honor of their father, then they would not have to return it. Shmamino Rebbe Gazlan de Reb Shimon Ka'omer Shmamino. So from the fact that our Mishnah says Hagozel umaychil, so that there's Gezela, and we're saying that by the Gezela there's Yehush. So, and Rebbe is saying that by Gezela there would be Yehush. So it must be that Rebbe holds like the Gezela of Reb Shimon, that there's Yehush by Gezela, and Ganef ki Gazlan means that by a Ganef oichet there's Yehush, just like by a Gazlan. Okay, fine. Wow, shtickle mouthful, but all right. V'chein nechil shel dverim, and oichet a swarm of bees. That oichet by a swarm. Okay, fine. Oichet by a swarm of bees. So then, if there's Yehush, so then I guess the person could make a kinyan on it. Okay, fine. So where am I? So my v'chein, what does it mean? And similarly, like obviously, I mean, just like anything else, right? If there's Yehush, then there's a kinyan, or at least potential for a kinyan. If not, then not. So this is what it's saying. I feel in nechil shel dvarim, even a swarm of bees. De katone. The kinyan derabonon that it's only a kinyan midirabonon. I think the point is because a swarm of bees by default is kind of hefker. So even the kinyan on a swarm of bees would be derabonon. Nonetheless, Hagadati Chamina, I may think Hakev derabonon be'alma hu dekanile afilu stomanam miyayish. Since it's only a derabonon kinyan to begin with on this swarm of bees, so I would think that by default there would actually be yehush. We wouldn't have to, check if there's yehush. So, no, only if the owners were miyayish, the owner of the swarm was miyayish, but not by default, even by a swarm of bees. Amar Rabbi Yochanan ben Breka emenes isha v'kohen v'chulei. Rabbi Yochanan ben Breka says that a woman or a kohen is believed to say, hey, this swarm of bees went flying from this place. Isha v'kohen b'nei edus ninu. How come they are believed? Isha v'kohen are not b'nei edus. Omar Rav Yehuda Omar Shmuel Hachab Ma'iskinon. Here what are we talking about? Kigon, for example, Shahoyu Bailim Miradfim Achreim. Well, it's talking about where the owner of the swarm was chasing after the swarm. The owner of the swarm was chasing after the swarm. And Yanki Lazar. I have a memory. I think it's a true memory. I don't think I'm making it up. I have a memory. It must have been very, very young. Very, very young. Maybe 6, 7 years old. I have this memory of being in the garage at my parents' house in Teaneck with Donnie. I don't know what the heck we were doing in there, playing something, and there was a bee, and I think I ran away from it to run inside. He had like a stick or something. He was like swatting at it. I think we both survived. Yanki, maybe you can ask Donnie if he remembers. If not, maybe I'm making it up. So so if you have the owner of the swarm is like chasing after his swarm, and an isha or a kohen are just mesiach lefitumam. V'omrim and saying mikan yotzon echil zeh. Yeah, the swarm came from this place. What does mesiach lefitumam mean? The mesiach lefitumam means just speaking off the cuff, without any kavana, without any intention of like giving official testimony or anything. They're just talking, oh yeah, that swarm came out from this place, right? They're just not even thinking, without any reason to say other than that this is what happened, right? So we see that there's a guy chasing after a swarm. They overhear these people saying, oh yeah, that swarm came from this place. So we can trust that the swarm belongs to this person. Amar Rashi says, Rashi, Ein Mesiach Lefitumo kosher elo le'edus isha bilvad. The Messiah says of Rashi that Mesiach Lefitumo is only kosher when it comes to edus isha. That if a woman doesn't know if her husband is gestorben or not, and we want to allow her to get remarried, and a kohen says, what does Rashi say? That they right in the Rashi le'edus isha shama tinokis. You heard the baby saying shayu om, that they said hare anu ochon lispod v'likbar es ploni, that we're going to a levaya for so and so. Okay, if you have these these young people on their way to a levaya, and they say, oh yeah, we're going to so and so's levaya, you can trust that we can allow her to get remarried based on that. But dafka by edus isha, to allow people to get to prevent agunis. Omar le Ravina le Rav Ashi vilo. We don't rely upon mesiach lefitumo in other scenarios. Vari nechil shel dvorim mesiach lefitumo. But what about the swarm of bees? That's mesiach lefitumo. Right? And we're saying that we could trust what the isha, the kohen say, in order to trust that the swarm belonged to that guy. So shaina nechil shel dvorim, it's different when it comes to the swarm of bees. The kinyan derabonon, who, because it's only a kinyan derabonon anyways. The oraisa lo, what we don't say mesiach lefitumo by the oraisas. Ve'omar Rav Yehuda Omar Shmuel ma'aseh ba'odam echad shehoyo mesiach lefitumo. There was a ma'aseh with a certain fellow who was just talking off the cuff. Ve'omer, and he says, Zachurani, I remember kishe ani tinok, when I was a young fellow, umur kavani al kseifa shel abba, and I would go on my father's shoulders, v'otziuni mi beis hasefer, and he would take me out of the cheder. V'evshituni eskutonte, and he would take off my tunic, v'tbiluni, and we would go to the mikveh, lechol betrume la'erev, so that I would be able to eat trume at night. Reb Chanina Masayim Bahachi, and Reb Chanina would conclude, v'chavera bedilin mina mimeni, that he then went on to say, and my friends would stay away from me, because I was tahor now and I needed to remain so in order to be able to eat truma. Vayukorin osi, they would call me Yechnon Eichel Chalis, Yechnon, the eater of Chalis. I wonder if that's like Rabbi Yechanan ben Zakkai. Well, I don't know if that makes sense here, because V'ha'alei Rebbe lekuna al piv, and Rebbe then says, "Wow, this person is a kohen." I assume no, this is definitely not Rabbi. It's certainly not Rabbi Yechanan ben Zakkai. No, forget about it. And Rebbe trusted that this person was a kohen based on the Mesiach Lefi Tumah. He was just saying, I remember when I was a kid that we would eat truma, so Rebbe assumed that he was a kohen. But truma d'Rabbanan, yeah, but that's only by truma d'Rabbanan, not truma d'Oraisa. Truma nowadays. During the time of Rebbe, there was no Beis Hamikdash. V'akati d'Oraisa lo, but still, we don't say Mesiach Lefi Tumah by d'Oraisas v'ho. K'asur Rav Dimi, when Rav Dimi came from Eretz Yisrael to Bavel, Omer is Rav Chana Kartigno v'Amilo, Rav Acha Kartigno b'Shtoi Maise Balefnei B'Shur B'Levi. There was a Maise came for B'Shur B'Levi. V'Amrei lo Maise Balefnei Rebbe B'Tinuk Echot Sh'Oy Masiach Lefi Tumah, with a young fellow who was just Masiach Lefi Tumah v'Omar, and he said, Ani v'Imi nishbinu levein ha'akum. Me and my mother were captives among the akum. Yotzasi l'shov mayim, I would go to draw water, daiti alimi, and I was always thinking about my mother and making sure that she was okay. Lilkot eitzim daiti alimi, I went to collect wood. I was thinking about my mother, taking care of her. V'yisir Rebbe al piv l'kehuna, and based on that, Rebbe assumed, okay, he was always keeping an eye on his mother. Nobody had any relations with her, and she could marry a kohen. B'shvuya ikilu, but that's only because we're more lenient when it comes to shvuyas, because we want to be able to support them. So that is why we could rely upon the Mesiach Lefi Tumah, but we haven't disproved that Mesiach Lefi Tumah be'etzem would really only be primarily by agunas. Avalo yikots es socho v'chulei, we said, do not chop off your friend, the branch of your friend's tree to get your swarm of bees. Tanya, we learn in the Brayso Bishma ben Osha B'Yochanan ben Breke Omer, it says of Bishma ben Osha B'Yochanan ben Broka, T'nai bezdenu, it's a stipulation of the court, that you can go into your friend's field, and chop off his branch in order to save your swarm of bees. And then his friend will be repaid from the value of his recouped swarm of bees. And it's also a stipulation of the courts that if he has a barrel of wine and his friend has a barrel of honey, and the honey is more valuable than the wine, he should spill out his wine in order to save his friend's honey. And he would, he would recoup the value of his wine that he spilled out from the value of the honey that he saved. And it's a stipulation of the court, if his donkey has wood on it and his friend's donkey has flax on it, and his friend's donkey with the flax kind of is, I don't know, something happens to it and basically the flax is going to get ruined. Where am I? So, if his friend's donkey is not doing good, so he should get rid of his wood and instead replace his donkey's load with his friend's flax, and then he can ask his friend to pay him back for his wood from the value of the flax. That it's specifically with this in mind that the Yidden are going to watch out for each other and take care of each other and be chilled out towards each other, that Joshua inherited, bequeathed to the Yidden Eretz Yisrael. Friends, that was Daf Kuf Yudal, Masechta BavaKama. Hope you enjoyed. Peace out.